Welcome to the Coffee Talk Podcast. This is intended for informational purposes only and not to be used as a primary basis for investment decisions. Consult your financial professional before making investment decisions. Shannon Ross is a registered representative and MBA of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse Financial offers securities and advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisories Incorporated, member FINRA and SIPC. Shannon is CEO and managing financial partner of Lighthouse Financial. Cambridge and Lighthouse Financial are not affiliated. And now, here's your host, Shannon Ross.
Well, happy week until Christmas, everyone. I'm so excited.
Are you?
I am.
Good.
I am. And honestly, which is a little different for me. I have had many years of being a Grinch and not. I really used to hate Christmas carols.
You have never been a Grinch.
My kids and husband.
Now your husband is off
you.
the rails. Loves Christmas.
Yes, he's November 1st.
That's my.
But this year, I'm actually, I'm coming on board.
I feel like you're more in the Christmas spirit than I am.
This year, yeah, maybe.
I am. What's wrong with me?
I don't know.
I don't know what it is.
I go to some kind of Christmas event for either work or
maybe that's
every day. So
that's where you're.
I'll be jolly I'll be jolly and 30 pounds heavier than you because of all these.
all your scones events. You're eating these days.
All my scones, all my sweets. I have a big. This week I have a big. Me and a couple friends are baking a lot of cookies for a cookie exchange.
Excuse me?
I haven't told you about this yet because I just found out.
Why do you do this on the podcast? You're having a bunch of friends over to make cookies and I'm
you're
not
gonna
invited.
Come. I just assume that you'd have no life outside of me. So I was going to tell you today. So
forgot about
December
me.
18th. Come over.
You forgot
We're
about
making
me.
lots of cookies.
You forgot about me.
I did it.
Saturday the 18th? I think I'm busy.
Well, we are getting super close to Christmas.
Yes, we are. Are you done shopping?
Yes.
We've talked about this.
I am done.
Yeah.
The delivery people
I'm
are not done delivering to me, but I'm done shopping. So, and I don't know why I do this with wrapping. I feel like I leave wrapping until like
the
couple days before,
minute.
and then I'm
That's
like,
me.
oh,
yes, the last minute.
Crap.
Like literally Christmas, sometimes Christmas Eve. I'm like, oh, have you ever been wrapping and suddenly you find something you totally forgot that you bought to begin with? You're like, oh my gosh, yes, I still need to wrap this.
I'm a little bit older ladyish. I forget where I put some of my gifts that I've hidden. Like I'm like, oh, where did I put it?
Oh, I've done that before.
Oh, I do that a lot. Yeah. It's really not healthy.
No.
but
every year I say I'm going to start wrapping earlier. So I've told myself I'm going to start this weekend to get presents under the tree. That's what I've said.
That's what you've said.
No, we'll see. I hate wrapping. And I don't do bags at Christmas.
Yeah.
Number one, because I don't trust that my son won't peek in the bag, or my husband
fun
for
to
that.
rip through.
I know.
Yeah,
well, and they're prettier under the tree with the lights, and so I actually still need to buy Christmas paper. I haven't even done that yet. I went to Target the other day, and they are picked over.
Yeah.
So I know.
Well, hey, we got a few more days.
Well, yeah, that's true.
A few more days.
That's true.
And we both have husbands with birthdays in December, so that's also.
Well, my husband's birthday was yesterday.
Yes. I know. Happy birthday, David.
Happy birthday, David.
Mine's on Christmas Eve. So I've invited like 30 people, and you were on that list.
I got invited to this event.
To another event with food and
Christmas
drinks.
Eve happy hour. I was invited to that. It's not the cookie making.
I have not bought all the things yet for that either.
Oh,
so I'm more of a day at a time, kind of like, what do I need to do today?
Well, let me know what you need help with on that.
Thanks, I will.
Actually, party planning is kind of fun.
It is fun.
It is.
It's a low key night. We just do a bunch of appetizers and drinks, and people can pop by. It's not like people can't,
not like a formal sit down or anything. Yeah.
It's kind of like an open house, but because my husband's highly introverted, he has a very specific cutoff time. So like in the invite, I had to put from 4 to 7, not 7:01, not 7:30, but at 7 o'clock, everyone will be leaving. And if you haven't come by then, you're not invited anymore. Like the lights will be off. Because, we have, some fun traditions of watching, what's that movie? You watch the same.
Polar Express?
Polar Express, yes. We watched that on Christmas Eve night with our kids.
And your husband, like I even know, like on the norm, forget Christmas Eve tradition, like don't stay past 8 o'clock. No.
When we have you for dinner,
bedtime is 8:30.
He's an early to bed person.
Yeah, I mean, although I get a special pass a lot of times because
you do, and we do because you and I usually stay.
We stay up late.
Your husband leaves early. My husband goes to bed early.
It works
and then
out
we're
fine.
Out there until like midnight, using it up. So So it's a fun time of year.
We're the party animals.
It is. And, I understand for those who aren't, it's, the holidays bring out some painful times too.
Very.
And I had a lot of years like that, which is why I think I hated Christmas carols for a long time, because they just represented loss and pain for me for a long time.
I can understand that.
That it took a while.
There were triggers maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, music, and you're just always, reminiscing about the past in the holidays.
So now what's your favorite Christmas carol?
Oh, that's a great question, and I know the answer.
Oh, good.
Because I've listened to it like on repeat, and my family's
That's a funny way to say that.
But I love it's Carrie Underwood, and
does that count as a Christmas carol?
Whatever, but it's Hallelujah. It's on Christmas. It's on her Christmas album.
Okay.
What is that guy's name? John Legend. John Legend and
I
Carrie
listened to
Underwood.
that the other day.
So good.
I had never heard it before.
I get to tears every time.
It is. I had never heard it before, and it is outstanding. That is really, really good.
What's yours? What's your favorite?
Oh, Holy Night, Nat King Cole.
Oh, that's
yeah. Ella Fitzgerald, Sleigh Ride. Love that one. Bing Crosby, White Christmas. Can't beat it.
Oh, I love White Christmas. That growing up, my grandparents, we watched White Christmas every year.
Oh, yeah. Well, and with Christmas carols, I like the old school. Ella Fitzgerald, Bing Crosby. I like that more than the newer stuff. But I do love the Hallelujah with Carrie Underwood. Legend.
It's a good one.
It's
Listen
good.
to it if you haven't.
Yep.
Well, good. Well, today's show, we had a fun show last week talking through the 8 best benefits of being generous. We're on this yellow brick road path, and why we titled that was, I think, and I think you're in agreement with me here, that generosity is the single biggest, best thing you can incorporate in your life to impact all areas of your life in a positive way.
Absolutely.
And we went through a lot of those reasons why you should introduce it last week. What stuck out to you the most, do you think, of the 8 that we reviewed?
I would say, gosh, quit asking me questions. She's not being very generous with how I feel about question dropping.
Well,
I know. I'm headlights. No, I think the one that surprised me the most was the more satisfaction on your job.
Yeah.
That one surprised me,
Yes.
just because, like we said, we consider that, not that you shouldn't be generous at your job, and you should be, but this article was specifically saying that you will find more satisfaction just in your career path by itself, the more generous you are. And I think maybe I've always just kind of what I'm passionate about, where I serve, that is outside of my job.
Yeah.
So I thought that one
and
stood out
maybe
the most.
people look at, if you're generous and you have funds to donate, you have time to donate. Those are kind of features that can come from if you have some flexibility in your job. If your job pays you enough to have a little extra.
Yeah.
That's the part of maybe you're more grateful for a job like that.
Sure.
Because Lord knows we all work a lot, so you better well like it.
That's
or
right.
Make some tweaks and changes.
Especially this time of year.
I know.
We're super busy this time of year.
We
but
are closing out the end of the year. Yep. So, today I'm personally really excited on this show because I have a special guest that's going to be joining us in a minute. But we have the last 2 shows, I think we've done a good job of just helping people get started. If they're not really focused on generosity but they want to become more generous, kind of some ideas of starting in your closet, starting in your house, picking things that you don't use and donating them, find a neighbor, find someone in your local community. There's need all around us. All you have to do is open your eyes. And so we've tackled that. Today, I really wanted to spend some time tackling the other side of this. And so for me, as I've shared kind of my story along the way of generosity has been the single most thing that has impacted my life in the most positive way in relationships, in friendships, in finances. And so we're going to focus a little bit more on the finance piece today. And I'm excited because honestly, this is going to be on my challenge list, on my kind of New Year's resolution list for 2022 is to start what we're going to talk about today. Because I have some mentors in my life and I've chosen them for this reason, is they take generosity to the next level. They take it really to an aggressive level where they're looking at their annual budgets and they're making cuts to say, okay, where can we make cuts so that we can give, we've always kind of heard, if you go to church, you tithe 10%, But these folks, they work to do the reverse where, they're trying to get to living on 10% and giving 90.
Right.
Or some sort of breakdown like that, where they are aggressively pursuing. They know they've kind of set what's enough is enough. What allows me to still send my kids to college and, be a responsible parent and have a home and those kind of things. But what is that cutoff? And anything outside of that goes. And I'm, doing research to, causes that you're passionate about, things that have purpose and impact on the greater good. Yeah. And so that's what we're going to spend some time today. So I have a guest. I'm super excited to introduce her, Lisa Malick from my firm, Lighthouse Financial. So she is my one in my right hand there. She meets with most of our clients several times a year. She's rock solid, super smart. She's a C.F.P. certified financial planner. It takes a lot of work to get that designation.
Yeah,
and so, Lisa, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Shannon. Hi, April. Thank you for having me on.
So good to have you. She's dialing in from our Boulder location this morning. And so I asked Lisa to come on to the show today to talk about a very near and dear topic to my heart that I'm excited to even learn more about, and that's called a donor advised fund. And so today we're going to be talking about some very important financial strategies that I think most people are not aware of if you want to get a little bit more aggressive in your giving, what are some things, what are some tools that you can start, what you can activate to continue on this journey. Yeah. And so, Lisa, thank you for joining. Before we start, Lisa, what's your favorite Christmas carol?
Well, I have to agree that my favorite is "O Holy Night."
Oh, nice. Winner. That's good. That's
good. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much for your time. So Lisa, for those who have never even heard of a donor advised fund, let's start at a kind of a very high level, if you don't mind, of just explaining what it is and why it's even around.
Sure, absolutely. A donor advised fund is something that you as an individual or as a family or even as an organization can set up. It's a private fund that you have the ability to have it administered by a third party, and we often call them a sponsor. And they're used for making charitable donations, but they have several advantages over simply writing a check to your donation of choice. And we can go into, a lot of the pros and cons of those, but essentially you put the money into this fund that you wish to donate, you get a tax deduction in the year that you put the money in the fund, but then you have discretion over when and how much and where those donations go over time. So they're really super as far as a tax savings vehicle to supercharge your tax deductions in any particular year. They have a lot of great advantages as well, and we can go into all that.
That's amazing. So let me ask you this. So do you know of any kind of minimums to start a donor advised fund? Do you have to have a certain amount in mind that makes it that you can open one with? Similar, some checking and savings accounts have minimums out there. Do donor advised funds have any minimums?
Often the minimums will be set by whoever the sponsor is.
Okay.
And obviously you probably wouldn't want to go through the hassle and the administrative trouble, for a few $100s.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Okay. And so when you talk about these sponsors, are these sponsors typically like a company who does this as a business, or who typically is that third party sponsor if someone wanted to start one?
Well, most investment management companies sponsor donor advised funds. So, your Schwabs and your Fidelities, they typically have donor advised funds that you can set up. We certainly have something that we can set up at Lighthouse through our partner SEI. There are also things like community foundations or public foundations as well. There's things like the National Christian Foundation, the American Endowment Foundation, and many others. So there's a lot of ways to do this.
I love it. Now you said, and honestly, we all have ebbs and flows in our careers and in our, in our wealth. Some years are better than others. And so if we opened one, we're not like locked in to how much you give to your donor advised fund every year. So if you start with, say, 50 grand, something real aggressive, you're not locking in to 50 grand every year. Is that correct, Lisa?
That's correct. The real benefit of this is the ability to do large lump sum donations in any given year. For example, say you had a stock that you sold and it was very low cost basis. You bought it very inexpensively, it's grown a lot, and say you have $100,000 in gain in that one stock. You're going to pay a lot in taxes, and very likely $100,000 in gain could bump you into another tax bracket. Sure. If it were, say, a rental property or some other place where you have gain. So you don't necessarily want to get bumped up into a different tax bracket. So say at the same time, you also normally make about $10,000 in donations to, your church or your charity of choice each year. So what you could do is put that $100,000 into this donor advised fund, and then you get the deduction for that $100,000 in that year. So you're avoiding that huge tax bill from that gain. And of course now you're saying, well, wait, but now I don't have that $100,000 that grew. But now over the next 10 plus years, you, instead of having to take $10,000 out of your pocket and give it to your charity of choice, you use the donor advised fund to make that donation, and you get to keep that money in your pocket every year.
So, Lisa, I have a question. Is it safe to assume then that when you're talking about the sponsor, that maybe a Schwab or a Vanguard, that the monies that you put into your donor advised fund are also going to grow while they sit in that account, so that when you give, the potential is if you've put in 100 and maybe it grows by $25, your donation can be the full 125 versus just the 100 that you put in. I know I'm using really small numbers, but I'm assuming they grow, right? Because there is some investment strategy going on within that account. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And that is one of the benefits of a donor advised fund, is you get to direct how those investments, what those investments will be. So you can be extremely conservative, you can be extremely aggressive. It's like any other investment that you might have. You get to choose how it's invested. There are other issues of control, though. One of them is that the sponsor really gets to ultimately decide where those donations go. The way it works is you will make a recommendation, and as long as it fits within that sponsor's their what do I want to say?
Maybe philosophy, or
their philosophy, their guidelines.
Yeah.
Right. So if you were donating to the National Christian Foundation Donor Advised Fund, obviously your donations would have to align with their values. If you were donating to a community donor advised fund, it would need to be a community charity, and on and on. So you have absolute control over how it is invested, and you have control over where you direct those donations to go. But ultimately, the sponsor has final say in where those donations go.
So when you're shopping for a sponsor, you really want to make sure from a ideology perspective that you have similar morals, similar beliefs, similar priorities, and I'm assuming that they have quite extensive paperwork that shows what that is for each one of them, so that you don't make a mistake.
Yes, it's really important to do your research and pick the right sponsor.
Now, what do you think, and again, just ballpark, but, to set one of these up, because I'm sure there's some kind of administrative cost, right, to set these up. What in terms of fees do you typically see? What does this cost to set up and to maintain one of these donor advised funds?
Well, it can vary widely. And so again, it's really important to vet this carefully. Some can be far more expensive than others. And honestly, I really don't know if I can give you a good example.
Well, and it's a wide range, and honestly, next week's show, we're also going to be talking about how to give wisely, because, helping can sometimes hurt. sometimes you mean well and give to an organization, but their admin fees are, half of the money you donated, where you need to just be very mindful of what and who you're working through to make your money, travel further as you're generous in your financial donations. So I think, that's really wise. So some of the interview questions I'm hearing from you, Lisa, is, look at their philosophy, look at any restrictions they might have, and how you can make your recommendations of where your funds go. Look at the fees associated with that. Are there any other things that you can think of, Lisa, that you just want to make sure, that we're all mindful of just kind of creating this kind of checklist, if you will,
absolutely,
of questions to get answered?
Yeah, some of the big advantages. Well, we talked about the tax deductibility, and it's a really great benefit to be able to, as a CPA might say, bunch your deductions into a single year. Mm-hmm. Some of the other advantages, though, are that you can, typically in these funds, they can accept non-cash donations. So if your charity can only accept cash, but you want to donate appreciated stock, you want to donate Bitcoin, you want to donate your interest in a partnership, all kinds of things like that, you can actually put those into a donor advised fund.
Okay, good to know. So
a couple of other things.
Yes.
There is no deadline for giving. You put the money in, and then you have as much time as you want to decide where those donations go.
Okay.
Even after death, what you can do after the owner has passed, you can either then choose to distribute everything, or this can become a legacy item where you assign a new owner to control this donor advised fund. So this can become a family legacy item.
That's awesome.
And a way to really teach your children about giving. I have a client where every year they get together with their adult children and decide where they're going to spend these funds in the donor advised fund.
That's amazing. It's almost like creating your own foundation of sorts.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yes, and much less complicated.
Yes, and probably less costly as well.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest advantages that ties in with what you were saying about anonymity. Some people really like to give, and they don't like to, as they say, let the left hand know what the right hand is doing.
Right.
And so this allows you to give anonymously, because the donation is received from the donor advised fund, and the charity doesn't know who gave it.
Oh, that's
as
wonderful.
far as the person.
Okay.
And the added benefit of that is you don't then start receiving monthly solicitations for more donations from that charity.
Oh my goodness. I think I did that once for my college. I gave one small donation, and they made me kind of regret it for 10 years after that. Maybe it was a little crazy. So.
You feel like they're spending all of your donation on sending you mailings to ask you for
on stamps and envelopes. Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, I would also think, Lisa, if this would allow for being able to strategize a bit more when you're planning where you want your money to go, the donations, because from a charity perspective, charities, well, kind of like what you were mentioning about your school, but charities do like consistent donations. So I'm assuming through a donor advised fund, you can time those donations so that they are occurring annually, and that charity is receiving that donation at a consistent time, which is always good for the charity itself as well.
So they can predict it in their annual budget.
I'm assuming, right, Lisa, you can do that, is strategically time those donations for the better impact?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can set up a regular schedule of donations to your charities of choice.
And then you can change it, I'm assuming, right?
You can change the donation, you can change the amount, you can change the charity. The one thing that is irreversible is once that money is in the donor advised fund, it no longer belongs to you, and that is irreversible.
Okay.
So once it's in there, though, I mean, and again, as you spoke to earlier, making sure you do your research, is it because it's no longer your money? I mean, once it's there, it's in the hands of that Schwab or Vanguard or what have you. Is there when someone's doing their research on a donor advised fund and looking at companies, Lisa, what questions should they be asking that company as far as, I know there's limited control, but what kind of control they will have to ensure that their monies are going towards the charities of their choice and the investments that they belong in?
Yes, one of the biggest things you can do is ask them for a list of approved charities.
Okay.
First and foremost, they always need to be 501c3 tax qualified charities.
Uncle Milton cannot ask you for a donation from your donors.
Uncle Milton.
Yeah.
Sorry,
you
Uncle
can't
Milton.
send it to your cousin Judy.
Okay.
Yeah. But each donor advised fund sponsor may have their own set of criteria, limitations, minimum amounts, all those types of things. So you certainly want to really make sure you understand what you can and cannot do with your sponsor of choice.
Okay. Right. I love that. It's just neat because, if you don't do it a donor advised fund, it's not that you can't give. You can give, but you're restricted in that 12 months. And so, people rush and scramble usually in December because they don't really know their whole financial picture. They don't know their tax consequence. And sometimes you don't know your tax liability until April of the following year. So this allows you to put some, I think, repetition in, some structure in that you can say, okay, I'm going to start with this amount in it every year. And then if there's a little extra in April, you're setting up those tools to maximize your dollar. And that's what we talk a lot about. And if you pick conservative investments for these funds, there are certain funds out there that can, give you an okay return, better than a bank CD, where you're allowing these funds to grow in interest environment, and you have more impact of that dollar can go further for those charities that are near and dear to your heart.
Well, yeah, I think what's really, as I've been reading through this, different from a private foundation, which there's nothing wrong with giving to a private foundation, but they have there are some restrictions on donor advised funds that I've read about that may not be on a private foundation. Like it doesn't have to be a 501c3. Mm-hmm. But with a private foundation, and you guys keep me honest with what I've read, you can only give a certain percentage of your AGI, right? Depending upon where you're giving.
Right.
Whether it's 20% or correct? But when in a donor advised fund, you're not having to pay attention to that AGI at all, are you?
Well, no, there is a limitation with donor advised funds. You can give up to 60% of your adjusted gross income for cash donations.
Okay.
And for non-cash, I believe it's only about 30%.
Okay, so 30 non-cash.
That is of your total income. And we don't have too many people out there donating more than 30 to 60% of their income
goals.
every year.
Yeah. Hey, yeah.
Goals, for sure.
But I love, and what I love is this feels so doable for like any one of us. Like those of us, who want to make this a serious pillar in the now and in the legacy. And I had a fun story, and I won't name who this is, but I'm very passionate about generosity and giving, and I like to challenge people there because I challenge people there and they see fruit pretty soon after they start giving. And I think you're activating the supernatural, you're activating the Lord's blessing. I mean, there's a lot of scriptures about giving in the Bible. And so, I had a close family member who's younger, who is still, kind of developing who she wants to become as she gets into adulthood. And so we had this conversation over the summer of tithing and that concept of giving, and it looks scary, and it feels like a lot of money. It feels like a sacrifice. And so, I was just like, hey, just try it. Like, test me in this, like test these, these proverbs, and they will ring true. And so she did, and she was faithful kind of month after month. And she called me the other day, and it was amazing to listen to her. I think, she had given a certain percentage of her income that was challenging for her for 5-6 months. And then she got this call from work saying, hey, we were just looking through just everyone's employment and everyone's salary, and we just wanted to make an adjustment. We've never done this before, but making a significant adjustment of where your salary is.
That's
like just
awesome.
out of the blue. She actually thought it was a mistake because of the percentage that she got. She's like, and even when she discussed it with her manager, because this was an HR conversation, her direct manager was even like, I've never even heard of that. And it was just such a fun,
so cool.
Again, we don't give to get,
Right.
But those kind of, reaping and sowing. And she took this challenge, and it was a sacrifice for her, and it was scary. And then it came back to her like fourfold.
Well, now she has opportunity
and
to
now
give
she's
more.
doing, yes. Yeah. And now she is, because she's building these disciplines and seeing the fruit from it.
Yeah. And
really, again, putting it to the test. And seeing that fruit. So it's really fun to watch others take that leap of faith, because it's a scary leap of faith. Sure. I completely understand.
Yeah.
And as the dollar amounts increase, it's still a leap of faith. But psychologically, it helps, again, allow, no matter what wealth you ever build, it allows it to never own you. It allows you to always feel like you own it, and it's loosely held.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
because money can certainly damage a life, damage a soul, damage a family. And we've all seen that either in our immediate or extended family.
Yeah.
Money can be very tricky. And so these are ways to kind of just
continue to be the river, not the reservoir.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love this. So, Lisa, thank you so much. This is super important, super valuable.
Yeah.
I will be doing this.
Can I ask one more quick question, Lisa?
Absolutely.
So, because I want our listeners just to have, I love what Lisa said earlier, and there are pros and cons to everything.
Yes.
One of the pros I could see in this is just being able to streamline your giving. I think it would be an advantage. But Lisa, I'm assuming that if it can grow within this sponsor, right, with various investments, that also if there's a market downturn, that you could also, there are some risks there, right, because you could also lose some of your value, maybe especially even during like some inflation like we're seeing right now. So can you speak to that real quickly? Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely. That's accurate. It's like any other investment account. It will go up and down with whatever you're invested in. And the way to look at it, I guess, is you get the deduction for what you put in initially, and what happens afterward is outside of your outside of tax consequences for you. But obviously, growth is what you're going for, so you can give more and continue to be generous.
And there's a lot of options. So, there's definitely conservative options, probably so much that you can choose a money market account in some of these so that your risk is pretty much nil.
Sure. Yeah.
And maybe you do half and half. Maybe you do half in that and half in, in some that has the potential to multiply itself. There's multiple ways to look at it.
And one of the benefits too is you can, if you are if there is a downturn and the value of your account is down, then you have the flexibility to let it sit for a while, let it recover.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So it can sit there. Do they have any restrictions on how long the money can sit there?
Not typically.
Okay.
Some sponsors may have their own restrictions, but there are no laws requiring it to be distributed in any amounts or in any time frame.
Well, and another benefit with this, right? This doesn't require any tax filings right?
Yes, it makes it really uncomplicated. You get the deduction in the year that you make the donation, and then
they give you a statement, and that's what you give.
I mean,
to
the simplicity of that is nice as well.
Yeah, where you can donate to 5 different approved 501c3 organizations, and you're only getting one benefit statement, one thing on your tax return, for the giving category. So
I like
that's really. I hope you found it helpful out there. We'll be posting more information on our website about this. Next week, we're going to record our Christmas show. So I'm so excited as we approach the big 50 number, which is a big deal. That's a lot of shows.
For a hot minute, I'm thinking like the age 50, and I'm like, well, I'm several years from that now, Shannon. I have no. Where is my head today? Because that was my first thought. Was
You're like,
that
don't say that.
I'm not talking about age 50 right now. But Lisa, thank you so much for coming on today. This was very interesting.
April, before we let the audience
April, did I
go.
hear you just got a donkey?
I got 2, Lisa.
Oh, 2.
2 mini donkeys.
I'm sure she'll show you pictures the next time she sees you.
Listen, I'm gonna.
I was going to get her a locket for Christmas.
If you,
donkey's picture.
Lisa, if you ask me questions about mini donkeys, get ready for emails because it's going to be like 2 new babies in my house and not in my barn. You're signing up for pictures.
I love it.
Well, you were also talking about goat yoga, but maybe you can just take that to the next level and
that's what I think
donkey
too.
yoga.
Listen, Lisa, I want this to turn into a mini farm. Many donkeys, many goats, many cows, many horses.
We're on
all
board.
the minis.
We
I know.
say yes. Lisa and I will be your first students, so we'll come.
Absolutely.
And you'll get the friends and family discount.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank
Thanks,
you, everybody,
Lisa.
for tuning in.
Yeah.
Find us on our Instagram page, Copy Talk Podcast, YouTube channel, copytalkpodcast.com, Facebook, all the mediums.
All the
we are
things.
there. So
Yes.
come and join us, and we will see you again next week to celebrate the holiday.
Yes.
That's exciting.
It
to
is.
us.
Thank you,
So
everybody.
Thank you. Have a great week.
This is intended for informational purposes only and not to be used as a primary basis for investment decisions. Consult your financial professional before making investment decisions. Shannon Ross is a registered representative and MBA of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse Financial offers securities and advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisories Incorporated, member FINRA and SIPC. Shannon is CEO and managing financial partner of Lighthouse Financial. Cambridge and Lighthouse Financial are not affiliated.